Welcome to today's video, and as you can see from the thumbnail, these are two quite heavy, big boxes. The idea of the video is that we buy faulty items from eBay, try and fix them, and then sell them for a profit. And I'm really hoping for a profit today after last week's loss. Let's open them up and see what we've got. Unboxing the first one is proving to be a little bit difficult. Joey Does Tech is failing to open a box. Here we have this week's items. Two Xbox One S consoles. One of them seems to be a digital version. For both of these consoles, I paid a grand total of £60. So you're talking £30 each. The top one here, even if this is a 500GB console, it will go for around about £65, I believe. The all digital 1TB, I should be able to get roughly around about the same, probably around £70 or so. So if I manage to fix both of them, it could be nice. If I manage to fix one, I should be able to make my money back. So really, in today's video, I need to be fixing both of them. We'll look at them individually, one at a time. And we're going to start with the digital version. Condition wise for this one, the plastic at the back is popping out of the shell, which would highly suggest to me that somebody maybe has been in the console or it has been dropped. If I turn down the brightness on the camera, you can see we've got a various amount of scuff marks and scratches. So the casing itself isn't in great condition, which will obviously affect the listing if we do fix it, meaning our profit margins will be lower. The listing on this one specifically states, unit power's on but have not been able to test further as HDMI is getting no signal. Unknown fault, don't know past this point. So we're dealing with a no image console. Let's give it some power and hopefully this doesn't blow the fuse. Okay, here we go. Power's in, that's good. Might as well plug the HDMI cable in as well. Does the console turn on? Yes, it does, that's good news. So we definitely have power. Switch over to our Elgato game scene. We don't seem to have any image at all. The console's been on for a good minute or so now and we have absolutely nothing. I'm just gonna see if we can boot it into safe mode. Perhaps it might be a hard drive issue. Usually to get the console into safe mode on a standard Xbox One S, you hold down the sync button, the eject button and the power button. And I'm sure on a digital Xbox, you just need to hold down the sync button and the power button, but it's not booting into safe mode. I'm not even getting the beeps to show that it's going into safe mode. So we're gonna have to go about this the old fashioned way, stripping the console down and testing the hard drive. Before I do that, I should just mention quickly that the HDMI port itself looks absolutely fine from what I can see at this weird bird's eye angle view anyway. In which case, let's go ahead and take it apart. Pause the recording a second. We have no green screws here, the long ones that keep the chassis held together. So Lord only knows what this console has actually been through. I've managed to easily get the casing back in, so that's really good, but it has most definitely been open before. If you look closely, we do have a little friend joining us for our dinner party today. It's like a little fly or something. This is why I wear gloves. Just already looking at the state some of this stuff is in. This is the power board, and we have some liquid damage, what looks like to be near the power connector itself, as well as some rust on the actual Wi-Fi card as well. So this is not looking good. Time for the actual reveal underneath the hood. Not too bad at all. We have some sort of something on the south bridge itself, which doesn't seem to be rubbing off. We have the 1TB hard drive, so at least we know that this is still in here, which is good. And I think that's what we're going to test first, is the 1TB hard drive on my PC, just to make sure it's good and healthy. A faulty hard drive can often be the cause of a no display, but my guess is that if somebody's been in this console and not put any screws back, this hard drive will be all right. But I have been wrong many times before. I've now put the drive in the PC and I'm just gonna refresh it, rescan, sorry, not refresh, and let's see if one populates here. I mean, it says bad, but it's not even let me click on it. It's just frozen the window. It's been like that for a while now as well. Okay, here we go, eventually. Looking at this hard drive, it's not even been powered on that many times, 1,217, and the amount of hours it's been on for is 481. That's nothing really, but as you can see, it's bad. Most probably the reason as to why it's not working. So let me replace the hard drive and we'll give it a test. Now I don't need to reassemble everything, as you can see here. I've just sat a test hard drive in this. So if we apply power and HDMI now and turn this on, what do we get on the game scene? Do we get an image? Pretty much straight away. So there's nothing wrong with the HDMI port on this console. There's nothing wrong with the HDMI retimer chip, which really eats into your profits, but instead it's a hard drive. I'm not gonna bore you with the ins and outs of putting in a new hard drive. What I will say though is I'll be replacing this little board because of the rust around it. I could just give it a clean, put it in, see if it works, but it just doesn't sit right with me as somebody who sells on eBay. I need to make sure that all the parts are gonna be good from a longevity standpoint. I want this to work for somebody for years to come, in which case I'll just replace it. So us replacing that, as well as a 1TB hard drive, you'll find out about the pricing at the end. I'll give the console some new thermal paste, make sure it's all nice and clean, and also give it the screws that it needs. Well, I can confidently say that we have fixed the issue with Xbox number one. Let's move on to Xbox number two. Somehow, the second Xbox that I've bought from eBay is actually in worse condition than the first. You can see that we have sticker residue here. It doesn't look like it's been opened, which is kind of nice, but the sticker from here is gone. I don't know why someone would go out of their way to take this off. It makes no sense to me. We've got a load of stickers here, which are also blocking some ventilation, which isn't great. And we've got a crack here and a crack in the chassis right here. This is not looking good for me. The listing on this console states that there is no power at all. So of course we're going to plug it in and see if we get any power. Do we get anything on the console? No, we don't. However, it does feel really squishy. Both of those buttons, in fact, feel very, very squishy. So I don't know if it's making a connection to turn it on. That could be extremely interesting. So let's take this one apart and see what's going on. You'll have to hit that pause button again. We have the only screws that we had in this one were the green long ones that I didn't have in the other console. You can't write it. I'm also missing the black screws that hold the board to the chassis. All the little small ones that are labeled either C or B are missing. No wonder it wasn't powering on. It has no power board, man. What? And we have no Wi-Fi card. Again, we have the same conversation as last week. This was listed as faulty. Not I have taken this apart before, stolen all of the components, put it back together, and I'm listing it for a cheaper price. They took the other components off, but they left the motherboard, the disk drive, the power supply. At least it's a 1 terabyte hard drive. I wonder if it actually works or not. Okay, I'm gonna take a known good working board and just place that in the front. Let's plug the power in in the weirdest way possible. I'm kind of hoping that it isn't just as simple as this. Does it power on with a power on board? Yes, it does. Funny that. We get a white light. Do we get a fan spin? I just stopped it with my fat thumb. I do think the fan did try to spin. There we go. We get a fan spin as well. It really smells. Do we get an image on the screen? Okay, it's been on this screen for a while now. We don't get anything. Let's try and boot it into safe mode to see if we've got a faulty hard drive or whether it's an actual display issue. Okay, this one doesn't want to play game either. So we're going to chuck this hard drive in the PC and see if it works. Okay, this hard drive says caution. So it doesn't say it's bad, but it's basically saying don't use it. So I wonder if that's why this isn't displaying. Let me try another test hard drive and see if that fixes the issue. Okay, I've turned the machine on. Do we get any display at all? We don't in fact get any display, and I'm wiggling the cable about as well, the HDMI cable, and I'm not getting any flickering or anything like that. And this is the same test hard drive that I used in the other console, so it should be fine. I'm going to try and put it into safe mode. That's the beep that we want for safe mode. One more. Okay, good. And we still don't get a display on the screen. This is good because it means that we might actually do some soldering work in today's video. I'll take the board apart. I'll actually inspect the state of the port itself. It could be the retimer IC. It could be the HDMI port. The HDMI port feels a little bit loose, so I might as well just go ahead and replace that anyway. So let's see if that fixes our issue. Here we have the TDP149 retimer chip. I've got some sticky stubs. Sticky substance is what I was meant to say. I got my words completely tongue-tied around it, but it doesn't look like flux. It very well could be. ESD filter doesn't look like it's been changed. Here we have the HDMI port itself, and every single pin on the HDMI port looks solid. So I don't actually think that is the cause of our issue. However, I'm still going to change this out anyway, because like I said, it's a little bit wobbly. I don't think it's wobbly as you see it now. It's more so the plastic inside the HDMI port itself. So I'll change this over, and I'll change over the retimer chip. I'll do just a 2-in-1, and we'll see if that gets us to display an image. If not, then our issue is most probably going to be this little ESD filter just about here. But looking at it from a side-on perspective, the balls underneath look fine. So let's get started with this right now. Okay, here we go. I have reassembled partially. Hard drive is in, power supply, and obviously the fan. Let's turn it on, make sure that it powers on. We get a white light, that's good. We get a spinning fan, that's also good. Do we get anything on the game scene, is the question. Doesn't seem like it. Let's turn it off and take some measurements. Okay, so I have my multimeter in diode mode, and we're just gonna have a look and see what the diode readings are on each pin of this HDMI port. There's definitely no bridges from what I can tell. You know what I didn't do though? I didn't inspect the port to see if we had any loose pins. I just assumed that they were good, which you should never do. Let's just poke these very quickly. If I put it up this close and try and hold the board very steadily with my hand, which is tough, you can see we have no bridges. So our next thing is to measure in diode mode and just make sure, usually it's over here, that we're getting, I think it's 5 volts on each of these, or maybe 3 volts, I'm not too sure, but that's when you have voltage coming into board. In diode mode, these should read around about 0.6 or so. So I'll just check the data lines very quickly. So we get 0.6 on the data lines, which is absolutely correct. 0.7 on these ones, 0.7, 0.7, 0.7, 0.7, 0.7, 0.7. Okay, and then here I get 0.6. On this one, we get 0.6 as well. So now I'm going to plug in a power supply and just make sure that we're getting voltage on these last two here. What voltage do we get here? Nothing. 19 volts. Here, nothing. So we get no power coming in. I believe this here is meant to have voltage because I think, yeah, that obviously links with this pin. So I'm not getting any voltage at all. So I think it is this little ESD filter that's faulty. Okay, let's swap this over quickly. Alright, now that's been replaced. Instead of testing for voltage, let's just give it a test and see what happens. Alright, here we go again. Xbox turns on. Do we get a display? I'm hopeful this time. We've changed out the ESD filter, the HDMI port, and the retimer. Already, if I'm being honest, the repair is not worth the money in the slightest, and it doesn't look like we get a display. I should have measured to see if we had voltage on the line. Let's go and check that now. And what do we get? Nothing. Well, we get 20 millivolts, which just quite frankly isn't enough. What about here? 21 millivolts on this little resistor. So maybe the ESD has been soldered incorrectly, or it's a faulty one. I'm gonna quickly take it off and measure it on the pad underneath. Being honest with you, everything looks okay here. Let's go ahead and plug in power and see if we get the actual voltages on the pads themselves. Or, well, I can start with here, can't I? We get nothing on this pad. This pad, okay, we get 3.2, 3.2 here, 5 volts here, 3.3 here, and 3.3 here as well. So voltages are coming in. Let's put the ESD back on. Okay, what do I get here? So I get 5 volts here, 3.2, 3.2, nothing, nothing, 40 millivolts. So I'm not getting anything directly from here to here, but that pad itself looked fine underneath. Subsequently, pin 19 isn't getting the voltage that it needs. Okay, I'm just going to inspect this a little bit further. I need to take this off again and see why I'm not getting any voltage to here. Because I'm pretty sure if this resistor was bad, I'd still be getting voltage here, just maybe not here. But I don't really know what's going on. Now, I know it sounds silly. I'm just going to check and make sure I get continuity from this pad to here, which I do because you can hear the beep. That means there's a continuous path. And then the same from here to here. Good. And I'm just going to quickly check here to here. Yeah. And I think I've checked that already. And also this point here on this cap to this one. Yeah, so I get continuity there as well. The paths are fine. Maybe it was just a bad ESD filter. This was brand new as well, but I'm going to grab a different one from another board and see if that's what the issue is. How are we looking now with power into the board? Okay, so I get 3.3 there. I get 5 volts there, 3.3 there, 3.3 there. Do I get anything here? No, I don't. What is going on? 20 millivolts again. Same with that. It can't be too bad ESD. Well, it can, but the chances are pretty slim. One of them was brand new, one of them was from a donor that didn't have HDMI issues as far as I'm aware. This damage to the chip is me. I've marked it, by the way. The only other way that I could really confirm that is if I quickly done the bypass method. But then the fact that we get the voltage on these two lines when this is off, but we don't get it when it's on, does tell me that it is something to do with this. Let's try one more. Meter again in DC voltage. Do we get voltage on here? No. Do we get voltage on here? No. 20 millivolts, 20 millivolts. Again, port is looking fine, so it wouldn't be anything dragging it down. I've checked continuity on each pin as well to see if any are joining each other, but they're just not. It's not our retimer chip, and it doesn't seem to be our ESD filter. I'm going to complete an ESD bypass on this just to see if it might even be my soldering, perhaps, that is the issue we are facing. However, if it works after doing an ESD bypass, I'm not going to be selling it until I at least get another one of these chips new. So let's do the bypass now. Okay, here we are. Next moment of truth. Do we now get the voltages we are wanting to see? No, we're not. We're still not getting the voltage here. We're getting voltage everywhere else. 3.2. Funny enough though, we get 4.1 volts here. And I'm pretty sure I've put everything in the right positions, but we're getting 4.1 volts now instead of the 5, I think, initially. On here, we're getting 5 volts. On here and here, we're getting 5 volts. But something's dragging down this point here. Maybe it's this component, you know. Now, as silly as this sounds, I'm gonna take all of this off and I'm gonna replace this component here, put an ESD filter back on and see if this little guy is the cause. I have nothing else to go by at the moment. And then I'm probably gonna call it quits if that doesn't work. Okay, here we go. Power's going in, no explosions, good stuff. Now, what do we measure voltage wise? Nothing, zilch, zero. Testing time, nothing, 20 millivolts, exactly the same. What is going on? 3.2 down here, 3.3 down here, and 3.3 here. What is happening? Unfortunately, with that one, I'm gonna have to call it there. I've spent a long time on this now. And the thing is, if I get it working with all of the components and stuff that I've used, I'd probably be in a negative anyway. So I just need to accept my fate. I will keep the board and maybe we can revisit it on another video or a live stream. But today, this board has won. By all means, there might have been a few more things that I could have tried, even something as simple as maybe just injecting on the 3.3 volt line to see if any components were getting hot when the ESD filter was on. Maybe I could have tried another HDMI port, but at the end of the day, I need to kind of work out what's worth the time and what's not. I feel like I spent way too long on that one already. So this is how we look for a profit slash loss. Remember at the beginning of the video, I spent £60 on both of the consoles. Let's have a look and see how much the 1 terabytes are going for. £95. That came with a controller by the looks of it though. 1 terabyte, £62. 75. For the first Xbox, I'll call it in the middle and I'll say I'll be able to sell it for £70. If I sell it for 70, that gives us £40 profit. However, take away the 1 terabyte hard drive for £20 and take away £10 for the front power board that I swapped out and the Wi-Fi board. I said £5 for each of those, so £10 total equals £30. Take 30 away from the 40, I have £10 profit. Minus postage of £5, eBay fees, maybe another £5. I've pretty much leveled on that one completely. Then if we look at the second Xbox, I'm minus £30 from that. Usually I'd minus the value of the chips on there as well, but because I've still got the board and I'm hoping to fix it, I'm not going to include that in the costings today. The profit or loss from today's video is a grand total of negative £30. Can only go up from here. I hope. I really hope. If you enjoyed this type of video, please join me over here where you can come and hang out with me and see if I make a profit or another loss. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.